The Springfield mystery that exposed a 30-year secret, the shocking true story of the Carter family tragedy. Springfield, Missouri, a town where life moves at a measured pace, where days begin with the aroma of fresh coffee brewing in local diners, and evenings end with porch lights glowing across quiet streets. For decades, it was the kind of place people came to escape the chaos of the outside world. A town where children rode bikes down tree-lined avenues, where everyone waved hello, and where the biggest news was often about high school football scores or a new bakery opening downtown. But one fateful morning, all of that idyllic charm shattered. It began with an early call to the local police station, a concerned neighbor reporting something unusual. What officers found when they arrived at a modest suburban home would change everything. The discovery was unthinkable, a violent crime so severe, so personal, that it sent ripples through every corner of the town. Springfield wasn't just shaken, it was broken. The questions began almost immediately. How could this happen here? Who could be capable of such an act? In a place where everybody knew each other, how could a killer walk among them unnoticed? As investigators combed through the evidence, the answers seemed elusive. But what no one in Springfield could have anticipated was that this crime would do more than devastate one family. It would uncover a secret buried so deeply that even those closest to the truth had no idea of its existence. A secret kept for 3 decades, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be unearthed by one unexpected clue. This is not just a story about a crime, it's about trust betrayed, the fragility of the community, and the lengths people will go to protect their past. It's a story that begins with a small-town tragedy and spirals into a mystery that continues to haunt those left behind. What happened in that quiet Springfield home on that ordinary day? What drove a seemingly peaceful existence to erupt into violence? And, perhaps the most haunting question of all, how many others were keeping their secrets, just waiting to be uncovered? For the residents of Springfield, the crime wasn't just a headline, it was personal. The home on Pine Ridge Avenue, once filled with laughter and the hum of everyday life, was now the center of an investigation that would grip the town for years to come. The family at the heart of this tragedy wasn't wealthy or famous, they were ordinary. And maybe that's what made it so terrifying. The victim was Linda Carter, a mother known for her kindness and warmth. She volunteered at church bake sales, organized carpool schedules, and never missed a chance to help someone in need. To the outside world, Linda embodied the spirit of Springfield, a devoted mother, a loyal friend, and a cornerstone of her community. Her teenage son, Jason, was a high school junior with a talent for music and a smile that could light up a room. He was popular but humble, the kind of kid teachers described as a joy to have in class. And then there was the youngest, 8-year-old Emma, a curious and imaginative child who spent her afternoons drawing pictures of animals she hoped to one day rescue. The Carters seemed like the family everyone wanted to be. But on the morning of June 14, 2001, everything changed. A neighbor, concerned after noticing the front door slightly ajar and newspapers piling up on the porch, decided to check on the family. Inside, they were met with a scene so horrifying that it would leave even the most seasoned detectives shaken. Linda, Jason, and Emma were found dead, each killed in a manner so calculated and cruel that it defied explanation. The news spread quickly. Within hours, Pine Ridge Avenue was swarming with police cars, news vans, and concerned neighbors. Questions swirled: who could do this? Why? And how could anyone target such a well-loved family? But as investigators dug deeper, they found that nothing about this case was simple. The crime scene itself seemed meticulously staged, leaving few clues. While everyone had theories, none of them quite added up. Was this a random act of violence? Or was there something about the Carter family that no one else knew? What started as a single tragedy was about to unravel a story that spanned decades, a story that would expose the cracks beneath Springfield's picture-perfect surface and reveal truths that some wished had stayed buried forever. Springfield was more than a town, it was a community built on shared histories, tight-knit families, and the unspoken understanding that everyone looked out for one another. It wasn't uncommon for people to leave their doors unlocked at night, to know their mail carrier by name, or to lend a hand without being asked. But beneath the surface, not everything was as harmonious as it seemed. The Carters had moved to Springfield in the late 1980s, seeking a fresh start after a series of personal struggles. Linda's husband, Mark Carter, was a traveling salesman, a job that kept him on the road more often than not. Over the years, his absences have taken a toll on the family. Rumors circulated that their marriage wasn't as perfect as it appeared, but no one thought much of it. After all, every family has its problems. Linda, however, had worked hard to build a life for herself and her children. She became a familiar face in town, volunteering at local shelters and becoming an active member of the church. Her warmth and generosity earned her the admiration of many, but it also attracted attention she may not have wanted. Jason and Emma, meanwhile, thrived in their ways. Jason, the eldest, was known for his musical talent. He played the piano at school events and even performed at a few local fairs. Emma, still a child, spent most of her time at the local library or exploring the woods behind their home. But there were whispers. Strange ones, about the family. Neighbors sometimes spoke of odd visitors to the house, cars that didn't belong, and arguments overheard late at night. These rumors were dismissed as gossip, the kind that tends to circulate in small towns. Yet now, in the aftermath of the murders, those whispers seemed to take on a new significance. Was there more to the Carter family than anyone realized? And if so, how far back did these secrets go? June 14, 2001, started like any other summer morning in Springfield. The air was warm, the sun filtering through the oak trees lining Pine Ridge Avenue. But inside the Carter household, a horrifying scene awaited discovery, one that would forever scar the town. It was around 7:45 a.m. when Doris Harper, the Carters' next-door neighbor, noticed something unusual. Doris, a retired teacher, was known for her sharp eye and early morning walks. She couldn't ignore the sight of the Carters' newspapers, untouched and piling up on the porch. Even more alarming, their front door was slightly open. Doris hesitated, thinking perhaps Linda had simply forgotten to close it. But as minutes ticked by and no sign of movement came from the house, her concern deepened. Doris decided to check in. She stepped onto the porch, called out Linda's name, and knocked on the doorframe. No response. Pushing the door open further, she was met with an eerie stillness. The air inside the house was heavy, thick with a faint metallic smell she couldn't quite place. She stepped into the living room, where everything seemed in order, at first. Toys were neatly placed in a basket by the sofa, family photos lined the walls, and the television remote sat untouched on the coffee table. But something felt wrong. Doris's gaze shifted to the hallway leading to the bedrooms. The door to the master bedroom was ajar. Taking a deep breath, Doris called out again. Her voice echoed down the hallway, unanswered. She moved closer, her footsteps hesitant on the wooden floor. What she saw next stopped her in her tracks. Linda Carter lay motionless on the bed, her body partially covered by a blood-soaked quilt. The sight was so overwhelming that Doris stumbled backward, nearly collapsing. Trembling, she fumbled for her phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, police officers arrived, their faces grim as they entered the home. The scene they uncovered was far worse than anyone could have imagined. Linda's injuries were brutal, multiple stab wounds to her chest and abdomen, each delivered with chilling precision. But the horror didn't end there. In the adjacent room, Jason's lifeless body was discovered slumped over his desk. His headphones were still on, and a sheet of unfinished sheet music sat before him, now stained with blood. Jason had been struck from behind with a blunt object, likely while working on a composition. Finally, officers entered Emma's room, where the youngest Carter lay curled up in her bed. Her small frame was eerily peaceful, as though she'd been asleep. But the truth was far more sinister. Emma had been suffocated, a pillow pressed tightly against her face. The entire house was a patchwork of contradictions. Some rooms were untouched, almost pristine, while others showed signs of a struggle. The kitchen table was set for breakfast as if the day had begun normally. But the signs of violence told a different story. Detectives quickly realized this wasn't a random attack. The methodical nature of the murder suggested a deep familiarity, someone who knew the family and their routines. But who? And why? Initial searches of the home yielded little. No signs of forced entry. No obvious motive. But a single detail stood out, the front door. It wasn't just open, it appeared to have been unlocked the entire night. As investigators began piecing together the timeline of events, they faced more questions than answers. What had happened inside this house during the early hours of June 14th? And what could drive someone to target a family like the Carters, seemingly without reason? The Springfield Police Department wasted no time assembling a task force. This wasn't just a murder, it was a triple homicide, a devastating blow to a community unaccustomed to violent crime. The investigation began with the basics. Detectives interviewed neighbors, friends, and anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual. Doris Harper's account provided the first crucial detail: the front door ajar, the untouched newspapers. But beyond that, Doris admitted she hadn't seen or heard anything suspicious. The autopsies revealed chilling details. Linda had been killed first, likely while she slept. Jason's murder appeared to come next, with evidence suggesting he was attacked while distracted by his music. Emma was last, a horrifying realization for investigators, who speculated that the killer may have hesitated before taking her life. The absence of forced entry led detectives to consider a disturbing possibility: the killer was someone the family trusted. This theory gained traction when Mark Carter, Linda's estranged husband, was questioned. Mark had an alibi. He was attending a sales conference 2 states away, but his reaction to the news raised eyebrows. He appeared stoic, almost detached. Neighbors offered conflicting accounts of the Carters' home life. Some described them as the perfect family, while others hinted at tensions. One neighbor recalled seeing an unfamiliar car parked outside the house late at night a week before the murders. Another mentioned hearing raised voices coming from the Carters' backyard just days earlier. Detectives began to suspect that the answers lay not in what was visible but in what was hidden. A deeper examination of Linda's life revealed financial struggles she had kept secret. Her bank statements showed mounting debts, while her phone records hinted at conversations with someone unknown to her closest friends. The breakthrough came when forensic analysts discovered a smudged fingerprint on the edge of the front door. It didn't match any of the Carters or their immediate circle. And then there was the discovery of an unregistered burner phone hidden in a drawer in Linda's bedroom, a phone with a single, cryptic text message sent the night before her death. It read, "We need to talk, tomorrow, same time." This message, and the fingerprints, would become the foundation of the case. But the investigation was far from over. Detectives were about to uncover a web of deceit, betrayal, and long-buried secrets that would shock even the most seasoned among them. As the investigation unfolded, theories began to emerge, each more unsettling than the last. Detectives, analysts, and even the townspeople speculated about what could have led to the Carter family's brutal murders. Some theories seemed plausible, grounded in the evidence at hand, while others delved into the darker corners of human imagination. The first and most obvious theory was that the murders were connected to Linda's estranged husband, Mark Carter. Though Mark had an alibi, his demeanor during questioning left investigators uneasy. He described his relationship with Linda as cordial but distant, claiming they had grown apart due to his work schedule. However, court records painted a different picture. Divorce proceedings from years earlier revealed allegations of infidelity and emotional abuse. Linda had sought custody of the children, citing Mark's frequent absences and erratic behavior. Despite this, Mark had maintained limited contact with his children, visiting occasionally and sending money sporadically. Could Mark have harbored resentment toward Linda? Or was there a financial motive at play, given her mounting debts? The second theory centered around a potential connection to Linda's social circle. Investigators discovered that Linda had recently joined a local support group for single parents, where she had grown close to a few members. One name stood out: Robert Hughes, a quiet, unassuming man who had attended every meeting Linda was present for. Neighbors reported seeing Robert's car parked near the Carter home on several occasions, though he denied ever visiting Linda outside of the group. When questioned, Robert appeared nervous, stumbling over his words and providing vague answers about his whereabouts on the night of the murders. His fingerprints didn't match the ones found on the front door, but investigators couldn't ignore the possibility that his involvement went beyond what he was willing to admit. Then there was the burner phone, a puzzle that added an entirely new dimension to the case. Forensic analysis of the device revealed a limited number of contacts, none of whom were immediately recognizable to Linda's friends or family. One number, however, belonged to a local man named Carl Thompson, a handyman with a troubled past. Carl had been hired by Linda to perform minor repairs around the house in the months leading up to the murders. He had a history of run-ins with the law, including charges of theft and assault. When confronted by police, Carl initially denied knowing Linda, but later admitted to working for her, claiming he hadn't seen her in weeks. The text message, "We need to talk tomorrow, same time," took on new significance in light of Carl's history. Was Linda trying to confront him about something? Did Carl have a reason to silence her? Or was his involvement a coincidence, an unfortunate connection that led investigators down a false path? As these theories circulated, another, more sinister possibility emerged. Could the murders have been a targeted hit, orchestrated by someone outside the family's immediate circle? Linda's financial troubles, coupled with the cryptic nature of the burner phone, hinted at a larger, more calculated operation. But who would go to such lengths to harm a small-town family? The people of Springfield were divided. Some believed the answer lay within the Carter family's past, while others pointed to external forces, a stalker, a disgruntled acquaintance, or even a stranger passing through town. Each theory raised more questions than answers. Why was Linda's phone hidden? Who left the fingerprint on the front door? And what was the significance of the text message sent the night before the murders? The case became a labyrinth of possibilities, each path leading to a dead end or a new, unsettling revelation. But one thing was certain, the truth, whatever it was, would shatter everything the town thought they knew about the Carters, and perhaps, about themselves. Months turned into years, and the investigation into the Carter murders remained the town's central obsession. Leads were followed, suspects were questioned, and evidence was meticulously re-examined. The breakthrough came 3 years later, in the form of a DNA match. The fingerprint found on the front door was linked to Carl Thompson, the handyman Linda had hired. Investigators tracked him to a small town in the neighboring state, where he had been living under an alias. Carl's arrest was swift, but his confession was anything but straightforward. In a series of interviews, he admitted to entering the Carter home on the night of the murders but denied being the one who killed them. Instead, he pointed to an unnamed accomplice, someone he claimed had orchestrated the entire crime. The trial that followed was one of the most watched in Springfield's history. Prosecutors painted Carl as a man desperate for money, willing to do anything to cover his tracks. The defense argued that Carl was a scapegoat, a convenient target for a case that had grown cold. Ultimately, Carl was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But for many in Springfield, his conviction brought little comfort. Questions lingered. Who was the accomplice Carl spoke of? Was he telling the truth, or was this another attempt to manipulate the narrative? Even now, decades later, the Carter family's story serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can exist beneath the surface of everyday life. Linda, Jason, and Emma are remembered not just for the tragedy that took them, but for the lives they lived and the community they touched. The house on Pine Ridge Avenue still stands, its windows shuttered and its rooms silent, a haunting monument to a mystery that, in many ways, remains unsolved. What do you think? Was justice truly served? Or does the real story remain hidden, waiting to be uncovered? Beyond the gruesome details and the labyrinth of theories, the Carter family's story is ultimately one of heartbreak, a testament to how fragile and fleeting life can be. Linda Carter wasn't just a name in a case file. She was a single mother trying her best to create a stable home for her children in a world that often felt stacked against her. Jason, at just 12 years old, was a boy who loved baseball and dreamed of one day becoming a doctor. His teachers remembered him as a curious and kind-hearted student who stayed late after class to help clean up. Emma, the youngest at 9, was the family's shining light. She loved to draw, filling notebook after notebook with colorful sketches of her favorite animals and imaginary worlds. Friends of the family recalled Linda's unwavering determination, even in the face of financial hardship. Despite her struggles, she made sure her children never went without. Birthday cakes, handmade costumes for school plays, and family movie nights were all testament to her love and devotion. The shock of their loss reverberated throughout Springfield. A small town where everyone knew everyone became a community marked by suspicion and grief. Vigils were held on the front lawn of the Carter home, candles flickering in the night as neighbors whispered prayers for justice. One of Linda's closest friends, Sharon, spoke to reporters shortly after the murders. Tears streaming down her face, she described the last conversation they had. "She told me she was worried about something," Sharon said, her voice trembling. "But she wouldn't say what. She just kept saying she'd figure it out. I should have pressed her. I should have done more." These moments of vulnerability, the fragments of what could have been, are what make the Carter family's story so haunting. It's not just the mystery of their deaths, but the lives they left behind. The empty seats at the school assembly. The unwrapped gifts were under the Christmas tree. The memories that will never be made. For the detectives on the case, it was impossible not to feel the weight of the tragedy. Many described sleepless nights, haunted by the faces of Linda, Jason, and Emma. "You want to stay objective," one investigator admitted years later, "but you can't help but think about your kids. It gets under your skin." The emotional toll extended to the jurors during Carl Thompson's trial. Some broke down in tears as photos of the crime scene were displayed. Others struggled with the enormity of their responsibility, deciding whether a man's life should be spent behind bars. For every person touched by the Carter case, the question remains: could anything have been done to prevent this tragedy? Could a kind word, a listening ear, or a moment of intervention have made the difference? It's a question that lingers, unanswered, in the hearts of those who knew them. The story of the Carter family will stay with you long after the screen fades to black. It's a tale of love, loss, and the unanswered questions that haunt even the most thorough investigations. What do you think truly happened that night on Pine Ridge Avenue? Was Carl Thompson the sole perpetrator, or does his story of an accomplice hold weight? And what about the mysterious text message, "We need to talk"? Tomorrow, same time. Was it the key to unraveling the entire case? We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe justice was served? Or do you think the real story is still out there, waiting to be uncovered? If this case has captivated you, Make sure to subscribe for more gripping true crime stories. And don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who loves unraveling these complex cases. Together, we can keep these stories alive and honor the memories of those who were lost. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and take care of one another.